Morning, church. Is Kevin participating in this lecture series, or is he just attending? That's what he's at, right? Participating in it. So, say we all think about him, and hope all goes well there for him. Am I on, Jim? As always, when I've done this morning sermon a couple times, the caveat is that I don't have precise timing as most groomed preachers do, so either you'll not hear the conclusion, or we'll have plenty of time to talk amongst ourselves before Bible study. I tried to pare it down so that we would hear the end of all of it. So, as I was thinking the other day, I sometimes will read parts of the Old Testament or parts of the New Testament, and I say this, as the story unfolds or continues, I sometimes read it like this, right? There was the creation, and there was Adam and Eve. So here's Adam and Eve, right? So here's Methuselah, Lamech, Noah. Do you sometimes read that in blocks of stories, in blocks of time that don't overlap each other, that don't come together? Well, then that's good, because then I'm not alone, or that I'd just be preaching to myself this morning. But so for your consideration this morning, almost 11 centuries after the creation of Adam and Eve, Lamech had a son, and that son was called Noah. Lamech was 182 years old when Noah was born. Methuselah was Noah's grandfather, and it was a contemporary of Adam for 243 years. And that's one of the points that I'm trying to make here this morning. Methuselah knew firsthand the events of the garden, the creation, the provision of it, and the fall. Lamech, again, who we said is the father of Noah, was 56 years old when Adam died, and clearly understood the fall of man and the curse of God. Genesis 5:29 reads as follows. And he called his name Noah, saying that this one will comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord has cursed. We would know then, as we're talking like this, we would know that Methuselah and Lamech heard Enoch preach and saw the example of his noble life. We know that it said of Enoch in Genesis 5 that he walked with God. So what I'm trying to get at is all of this must have made a deep impression on Noah. Right, so what is now Noah? He's second removed from the creation story, right? His father and his grandfather actually being firsthand from Adam. So this would have made an impression on Noah, coming from his grandfather and father. Not just a story, but like if you think in your own shoes, if your own grandfather, your own father said, I knew this person, I knew this story, I either know the story or know the man who told the story, that would make an impact on you as far as what you believed and what you didn't believe. But then a terrible thing happened, is that man refused to obey God. If you look at Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 and 6, then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Man did evil continually. They did nothing pure, nothing noble, nothing good, nothing honorable. Man had become a festering sore. Man can become so morally reprobate as that they go beyond the point of return. This happened to those in the days of Noah. If we look at Genesis chapter 6, verse 8, it says, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah was a man who lived in the midst of runaway immorality, and many believed that this even influenced his grandfather and his father, as they had also succumbed to this fatal influence. Noah shows us, though, that it is possible to live righteous in the midst of unrighteousness. We've seen throughout the Bible that Daniel did it, Abraham did it, Moses did it, Jeremiah, and Paul and Silas. So this morning, I would like us to take a few minutes and look at the life of Noah and how we can relate to it and maybe prosper from it. The first thing that I would point out to you this morning is that Noah was a man of courage. Noah was courageous because he stood alone against the world. We often say that, the world's against me, we're the church, they're the world. The entire world, besides Noah and his few family members, were against him. That's a bad day. That's a lot worse day than we have. Well, the world, or the weight of the world's on my shoulders. The entire world, mankind, was against him, was against God. So he possibly had to withstand the influence of his own family, as many of us have to do today. That many followed their own families into wickedness. Noah was courageous because those odds that we just talked about did not stop him. He spoke boldly in God's name. Noah preached many years without a single convert. Only his family heeded his preaching. Again, and we think we have it rough. If we go months, maybe a year, without converting anybody, woe is us. I guess I should have done that math, and I wonder how many years he worked on the ark and how many years he preached and how many years straight he went without converting. So Noah, to his credit, did not become discouraged, and he did not even begin to doubt the message. We see many today becoming discouraged. But if we look at Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9, it reads, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do all, let us do good to all, especially to those who are the household of faith." Noah kept sowing the seed, but saw it fall only onto the hard ground. And we need to remember in Corinthians chapter 1 what Paul writes there, is that we do the seeding, we do the sowing and the watering, but God gives the increase. It would have been great if he converted the whole world, but Jesus tells us in Matthew 7 that the gate is narrow, right? Matthew 7, verse 13. Jesus says this, "Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who will find it." So we need to do our part and be like Noah, and let God take care of the rest. So in the midst of wickedness, we must do as Noah did. Noah preached righteously. Noah taught the truth. Noah defended the faith. He sowed the seeds. And we should not lament over the results. The second thing I would offer you is that Noah was just and perfect. Genesis 6:9 says, "This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God." To be just, or righteous, as other versions will say, is to do what is right. Psalms 119. And I'll read 172. My tongue shall speak of your word, for all your commandments are righteousness. First John tells us in chapter 3 and verse 7, it says, little children, let no one deceive you. He who practices righteousness is righteous, just as he is righteous, speaking of God. So Noah was perfect. He was not sinless. He was perfect. What we mean by that is he was blameless. And we find out how Jesus was also made perfect if we look at Hebrews 5. Hebrews 5 in verse 8. Though he was a son, yet he learned obedience by the things which he suffered. And having been perfected, he became the author of eternal salvation to all who obey him. Though Jesus did not sin, he was not made perfect until he obeyed. So how was Noah perfect? He obeyed God. Because Noah was just and perfect, he was said to have walked with God. Staying in the book of Hebrews, the third thing I would like to talk about this morning is that Noah lived by faith. Hebrews 11 and verse 7 says this, by faith, Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world and became heir to the righteousness which is according to faith. Notice that Noah moved with godly fear and prepared an ark. Actions describe this faith of Noah. If Noah had not been a man of action, he would not have been a man of faith. Faith must obey. Vain faith does not obey. And we can see that in James, that faith produces works of obedience. No man was ever blessed on account of his faith until that faith manifested itself into acts of obedience. The fourth thing I will have you note is that Noah had godly fear. We've already looked at Hebrews chapter 11 where it says that Noah moved with fear. This is another thing that moved Noah to obey. Noah was the one who knew the majesty of God and knew he was to be reverenced in godly fear. To be godly means to love God, to be a follower of God, and to emulate God. To have godly fear, it means to have respect and to have reverence for God. Being unwilling to do any of this would be displeasing to God. And finally, Noah was obedient to God. Obedience is one of the best words that describes the life of Noah. You cannot be courageous, just, faithful, and have godly fear unless you are obedient. God told Noah to build an ark and gave him exact dimensions and a list of material to do so with to be used. And in Genesis 7 we find out Noah did all according unto the Lord commanding him. Noah was given the pattern and he obeyed, plain and simple. Today we have been given the dimensions and the materials to be used to sustain the present day ark, which is the church. We are instructed how it is to be constructed, we are told what it's to be made of, and we were told how to take care of it. What would happen to Noah's ark if he had not obeyed God's plans? Well, simply it would have sunk. Today, if we do not build this ark of safety according to God's plan, it will sink too. So Noah was saved through his obedience, as will we. So in conclusion, Noah is an example we should all try to emulate. Noah was courageous, he was righteous, he was faithful, full of godly fear and obedient. When I say we should all look at his life and strive to be a little bit more like Noah. Thank you.